Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Scaling Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Harper, and today's guest is my good friend, John Wilson. John took over his family's plumbing business and scaled it from $1 million in revenue. He'll end this year at $30 million in revenue. If you're stuck trying to grow a home service business beyond this early kind of ceiling that you reach, this episode gives you the exact playbook of someone who built a $30 million home services company.
I only had about 30 grand. So I paid 30 grand down and I emptied my savings account. And I took out a $70,000 seller's note that we actually just paid off about 60 days ago.
Wow.
And that was how we doubled overnight. And I understood then the power of acquisitions because it quickly expanded the pool of resources that I could play with.
John grew through acquisition. He grew through organic. He added revenue from acquiring and doing tuck-ins, and he's built a really large company by a combination of all those things. Today, we talk about why most small businesses stall out and they don't grow, how he thinks about hiring and capital allocation, and what it really takes to push back this kind of like these different breaking points in the business. There's a reason that people on Twitter quote this guy constantly. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about in today's episode. All right. John, welcome to the podcast.
Dude, thanks for having me on. I'm ready to get into it.
Yeah. Well, this is exciting for me. I mean, I came on your podcast, I think like a little over a year ago, and have since
early on.
We've become friends. Yeah, I don't even know how many units we had when I came on there,
but the number 75 rings a bell.
That rings true to you now?
Yeah. Where are you guys at now?
285.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. and when you give that number, something that confuses me with franchises.
Yeah.
Like that's units. So
right.
One person could have 6.
So good question. So we do a minimum of 2 units per franchise owner, which is a population of around 500,000 people. So we just want
each or total unit?
Total. So 250,000 per unit population. Our average deal size. Yes, please go ahead.
Why not just call it 1 unit then? If the minimum's 2.
Yeah, no, that's not actually
make sense to me.
So it's actually not a dumb question. So I've been doing this a long time. Yeah. Single unit owners typically are more difficult. They fail more frequently, and they produce less royalties, just as a generalization. Yeah. And we made a very intentional decision early on that we did not want single unit owners. We wanted people... And then also there's truck scaling requirements per unit. There's minimums per unit. So there's an economic decision behind adding multiple units. But we just only want multi-unit owners. So, but basically our average deal size is 3.36 or something like that. So the average owner buys between 2 to 4. The only time we really allow more than 4 units is if they've scaled a business before or kind of ran someone else's business or have a significant amount of capital, because they're agreeing with 4 units, they're agreeing to 4 trucks in 2 years. And scaling a home service business, that's aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
what happens if you don't get that?
They run the risk of losing the territories.
Interesting.
It's just so
when you
become
in that situation, because they still have the business, so they become Jim Bob's Power Washing or whatever.
No. Sorry. So they start with 1 unit, meaning 1 truck. So a unit and a truck are kind of the same. The next unit opens 9 months later, at latest, which is the second truck. Yeah. So now that territory is opened with another truck. So if you just look at Dunkin' Donuts, for example. Dunkin', you buy a development schedule to add 4 Dunkin' Donuts. So you own the rights to basically open 4 Dunkin' Donuts. The only difference with the service business, or at least with Rolling Suds, is a unit is, instead of a 4-walled structure, it's a truck. So like if you don't open your fourth Dunkin' Donuts, you lose the rights to open that Dunkin' Donuts, and it either goes back to corporate or you can sell it to someone else. So like they're not losing their business because they've opened 1 unit or 2 units. It's like, but if they have 5 and they never add other trucks, well then they lose their development rights to open those territories. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What's the largest franchisee right now?
So there's about to be a merger that's happening. The largest right now is 9, but there's about to be a merger happening that's 10, and then there's about to be another merger happening that's going to be 15.
Units.
15 units, and that franchisee will have 6 trucks. And they opened less than a year ago.
Yeah.
So they're just like, but they came in with like significant capital. They wanted to build a big business from the beginning. They had like 7 exits for pest control businesses in 10 years.
Wow.
And they own Tropical Smoothie and Crumbles and Paymores. So they're just like operating in a different game.
Once you're into like the multi-unit franchise thing, you're just into the multi-unit franchise thing. Like I have a
100%.
friend who runs Nathan, and he's got like 30 2-men trucks. And then
really? That's a great brand.
It's a great brand, yeah. He does great. And then he's got like 3 foundation repair businesses, a couple Zoom drains. Yeah, it's like once you get into it and you've got this infrastructure around like succeeding in multi-unit franchise, they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what you've done, like pivoting to what I think it's 9, is it 9 acquisitions in the last like 6 or 7 years? Did I read that somewhere?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what you're doing isn't too dissimilar from like what your friend you're talking about is doing. He just has like a brand. So if he's acquiring, he's just probably acquiring other franchisees, right? Whereas you're growing through organic, which you started when you took over the company. It was at 7 million.
It was $1 million.
Right? It was $1 million when you took over the company.
1 million. Yeah.
Okay, 1 million. And it was your dad. Yeah, give the listeners
I'll give the primer.
Because I want to get into more of the nitty gritty, but maybe just like the backstory would be helpful.
Set the stage.
Yeah. Perfect.
Hey guys, I'm John, and I'm a plumber from Akron. So that's me. I'm the guy you call when your toilet's broken, your electric's out, or your AC doesn't work. So that's me. I'm John. And I run my family's 3rd generation home service company. My grandfather started it in the late 50s. My dad ran it for 30 years.
Wow.
And then I bought it in 2016. It was a small shop. We're now a large shop. We've done a lot of deals. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're just a really large person that replaces your water heater.
So it was $1 million when you bought it, and now you ended last year at 28 million?
We ended last year 24 or something. Our trailing 12 months is 28. And our budget,
that's what you're looking at. Okay.
Yeah, our budget this year is 31, which we might surpass.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So there's 2 different ways you've grown, and I'd like to dig into it. One is through acquisition, which is what we're talking about. So maybe we could talk about that part first. And then just like organically, let's talk about both of those because I think they both have their nuances.
Yeah, I think it's stages. I think it's stages. At least it was for us. So when you're an under, there's these different like sizes inside any company, but in home service you have like reinvestment periods. Right. So you have this point in your business where you have to level change, and that level change always comes with a pretty significant price tag of typically salaries. Sometimes like CapEx, but for home service companies, it's salaries. So you see it at like $1 million. You see it at $3 million, $5 million, $10 million, 15, 20, 35, I think is the next one. We haven't hit it yet. And then 50. And each of these periods is this, hey, at this level, you need to X, and it is going to fundamentally change your SG&A which makes it really hard because it's a lot of cash out. You compress your earnings, and you have to be able to outgrow that. So it's obviously harder when you're small, when you're a small business. Like $1 million is not a lot of money.
Right.
And especially like as an owner, like, hey, I have to pay myself, right? I was 25, so I was married, I had to pay rent.
Yeah.
I had stuff to do. So like if the business spit off $60,000 to $70,000 in my W-2 salary, and I was a 10% company, then I have $30,000 to reinvest into growth.
Right.
So that is not a lot of money. And I think that's why so many companies get stuck is it's a matter of resources. And the only way that you can get out of there is you expand your resources. And when you're broke and you're 25, the only way you can expand your resources is by reducing what you take. So for me, I compressed my earning, like my personal W-2 salary, as low as I could humanly do it, all the way up until the business was like $15 million. Like I didn't pay myself above six figures in W-2 until the business was $15 million. And I still find it funny because I remember buying companies that were like a fraction of our size. And the owner had a boat and a lake house and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm doing the right thing, but yeah, I paid myself, when I first took over, I paid myself like 30 or 40 grand, because you have to create resources out of thin air. Like you have to be able to reinvest. So, it's really hard to figure out where to reinvest when you literally don't even know the game you're playing yet, which I would argue that nobody knows the game you're playing until like $10 million. So we turned to acquisitions early on because I had to expand the pool of resources. Like I needed
more. What size were you when you did your first acquisition, and then what size was that acquisition?
So I bought the business in October of 2016. I actually only bought half of it. I bought the other half in summer of 2019. Okay. And we did our first deal. So two owners were having to draw a living income out of $1 million of revenue. So obviously complicated. And I did our first acquisition in 2018, February of 2018. So 14 months after I acquired half. And in that period, we finished up 2017 at like $1.5 million.
Okay.
The deal we bought was $700,000 in sinking.
Okay.
So it was my very first deal was a turnaround deal, which was kind of fun. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
So the business had gone bankrupt in 2009 during the housing crash, and it was like a $700,000 business with 13 people on payroll. Like the economics didn't make sense. They still don't make sense. But I was able to double the business headcount wise. We went from I had 14 people. They had 13, 27 combined. And we were able to do that overnight. And because the business was basically going towards bankruptcy again, they hadn't been profitable in 3 years. I got it for $100,000.
Okay.
And
got it.
I only had about 30 grand. So I paid 30 grand down and I emptied my savings account. And I took out a $70,000 seller's note that we actually just paid off about 60 days ago.
Wow.
And that was how we doubled overnight. And I understood then the power of acquisitions because it quickly expanded the pool of resources that I could play with.
Right. Okay. So you go from 1.5 million to now
we did 2.8 in 20.
2.8. Okay. So now you still have what? You said 10% margin. So you still have $280,000 basically at the end of the day for reinvestment. And
no,
I'm assuming
like I would have at that point. I think I ran 5% for a couple years.
Okay. So you still need way more than that to get from $3 million to $5 million. And I know you talk a lot about like this kind of breaking $5 million. You've got this great event that you bring home service professionals out to. I talked to Cole Simpson, and he said
Yeah.
it was awesome. I
Yeah.
just told my entire network that they should go, and thank
Yeah.
you for offering
It's
that,
a win.
because
Yeah, it's a win.
they're super
'Cause I
fired
feel
up.
like
So, yeah.
once you get past 5 million, everything good starts at 5 million in my mind. Like everything good, you have resources to do something with.
Because it's like now you got 500-600 grand at the end
Yeah.
of the day that you
Yeah.
can pay really good people to help you grow.
100%. Or I'm back to my math earlier of like, hey, I had 30 grand to reinvest. But like,
Yeah.
hey, if I take $100,000 salary, I would still have $400,000 to do something with. And you can do some damage. Yeah, I mean, you can buy a boat or you can build a $30 million company. So like you decide which one is more interesting to you.
Yeah.
I chose the latter.
Yeah.
But
It's so, yeah.
but yeah, like you pick your poison. Yeah.
I
yeah,
laugh
so-
because I evaluated a ton of businesses and before franchising Rolling Suds.
Yeah.
And so many of them were exactly like what you're talking about. Like
Yeah.
you have a business doing $1.5 million
Yeah.
and you're like taking out literally everything. It's like, no wonder it's not growing. But anyways, I could talk about that.
Yeah, and I think it's like a personal consumption thing. Like my mortgage, like my wife and I, our first house that we bought at 27, and it was a couple years after owning the business, and it was $110,000. Obviously, it wasn't in the neighborhood, that would have been ideal. Like obviously, a lot of things, but my mortgage was $400 a month, and guess who got to build a $30 million company? So
Right.
I don't know that I could ever stress enough, like the under 10 million is hard because it's emotionally hard, not because it's actually like logically hard. Your business decisions are business decisions, but it's emotionally hard because you have to sacrifice a lot in order to get
Right.
above 10 million. So that's my pedestal on saving. But I do think, so that acquisition, we got to $2.8 million. It was a big game changer for us. Like really, we're like, holy smokes, this is real. I had to learn how to market because suddenly my schedule dried up, overnight because I bought a failing business. And then I learned how to lead teams. I learned how to put managers in place because I went from a flat organization and I was directly leading 14 people, 13 people, to, hey, I have 27 people now. Like, how do I create manager positions? And I've never done this. I'm 26. And like I was still working in the truck. Like I was like the day
Right.
before the acquisition, I was like doing service calls.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot to figure out, but it was exciting to watch the business just double. And I
Yeah.
was like, holy smokes, we can use acquisitions to grow fast. Like we can do this. And
Yeah.
this can be our way to break past what I believed were the thresholds.
So is that one of the ways that you advise breaking past 5 million
Yeah.
is through acquisitions? And talk to me
We
about
bring it
how
up.
one
I think
would
there's
do
a
it.
lot of risk there, but like, look,
Okay.
that's how I did it. Like I broke past
Yeah.
5 million with acquisitions. I did,
Yeah.
I did 2 deals before 5 million, and that got me to 4.8. And then after that, I did 3 deals in a row and, got to 13.
And did you stay in plumbing for those first however many acquisitions?
First 2 deals, yeah.
First 2 deals. And then once you were at 4.8 million, you're like, hey, I should diversify into, you went plumbing
So
to
we were
electrical?
already
or-
doing some HVAC. We had just
Okay.
launched it, not really on purpose. It wasn't very strategic, but we launched it in 2016 when I took over. And then, so we did those 2 deals, and then at the end of 2020, we were in our $4 million. It was
Okay.
kind of funny. This is just like a general aside. I'm sure you have the same experience, but
Yeah.
there's something wild about sharing your growth journey on the internet and then looking back later. Because like one of my first interviews that I ever did, my goal was like, dead or alive, I'm getting across $5 million. And that
Yeah.
was in 2020. And I mean, we did it, but yeah, just totally crazy. Like fun aside as far as like sharing the journey. But So yeah, and in 2020 we were in the fours, and I was like, I gotta get above 5, and like 10 was this unattainable number that I just was like, oh my god, who could ever be above $10 million? And I wrote it like I have a gym in my basement. And I wrote like $10 million like everywhere, like a vision type thing. Like every time I got on the treadmill, $10 million, and it soaked into me. And it's now I have the same goal. I just added a 0, but and it's the same level of obsession, I guess. But at the end of 2020, we started looking for more acquisitions, and we started hunting pretty seriously, and we used a couple services, and it was still early enough in the game that like there weren't that many buyers like there was a year or two later. So in 2021, I found a few companies that I felt like this could be a fit. One was a drain company, one was an HVAC company, and one was an electric company. And I remember, we're sitting there, and I'm like, man, I have 3 companies. I don't know which one I should do. And I talked to a friend of mine who sometimes I'm happy I did this, sometimes I'm not. And he said, why don't you do all 3? And I was like, fuck.
I love that.
Yeah. And so we did. So I've never been one to back down. So we did a deal. We added $3 million or $2 million of revenue in the drain business. We did that in July of 2021. We added $2 million in HVAC in September of 2021, and we added $4 million of electric in December of 2021.
Wow.
We went from 31 employees to 105 in about 140 days.
Wow, that is wild. So
it was
something that,
in fact, wild.
That's it. That's crazy. So I think what for people who are listening to this, like the evolution of kind of like, you talk about like numbers, big numbers like that, but like what I don't think is talked about enough is like the evolution of you as the business owner.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
100%.
Like you have to be a very different entrepreneur at $1 million, at 5 million, at 13 employees, at 104 employees. Like I've experienced that in a very short order amount of time. So I can only imagine. So talk to me a little bit about what that was like. The business needs different things from you. So how did you go through that?
We've shared a lot on that. And I'm pretty open about it because I think business growth and personal growth when you're the leader is the same thing. Like that's the same thing. We're solving for the same problem here. And absolutely, at every stage, they need a different version of you as a human, which is, it's hard. It is hard to go through. Like, the first, that first deal, I had to figure out how to lead leaders, which I had never done before. And okay, well, how do you coach managers? How do you set managers accountable? How do you give them scorecards? How do you even talk to them? And then like, what are they supposed to do? And what am I supposed to do with their reports? Am I allowed to talk to their reports? Can I talk to their plumbers about like their performance, or like, where's my line? What's my zone? And like, what am I supposed to be doing? And I think the what am I supposed to be doing is probably the hardest part. Like when I see businesses in this 3 to 5 million zone, that's the zone everybody buys their boat, if you're wondering. And it's because they have functionally replaced their day-to-day role. So it's in that zone where I hear so many people say, oh yeah, I don't do anything in the day-to-day. So I work 5 hours a week. And I'm like, bro, you missed it. Like you lost the plot. Like you don't do anything in the day-to-day. So that means your job has changed. And now you have to figure out what your new job is. And your new job at that point should be inorganic growth. How do I buy some shit? Organic growth. How do we push this farther? And now that I have more resources to bring to bear. So honestly, most of the journey is like exactly those 2 problems or 3 problems. Like, what's my zone? What am I allowed to do? And like, what are my leaders? What am I paying them to do? And what am I going to hold them accountable to do? Because that's really important. Like, why am I paying you money? Two, how am I supposed to relate with the rest of my team? That's culture. You can call it whatever you want, but like, what type of culture am I creating? Is it authoritarian? Am I the culture driver? Am I the dancer and yelper and all that stuff? Like, what type of culture are you building? So how do I relate to the team? And then what should I be doing as the leader with my time? Now, I think you're an interesting illustration of the last one because you create a ton of content. Obviously, so do I. And I think that for you, that makes total sense. As the leader, like, you are driving organic growth by spreading your brand through organic content. That makes total sense. For me, the argument of why do I create content is a little bit more nuanced because there's not as direct of a correlation. Right. I can paint the picture. It makes sense to me. I understand how owned and operated and our content drives our core business forward. We can talk about that if you want.
Yeah, I'd love to dig into that. Sure.
Figuring out what I'm supposed to be doing is probably the hardest part. And that's where owners stagnate, is because they aren't willing to get uncomfortable and figure out what they should be doing next.
And when you were at 5 million, was what you were supposed to be doing next different than now at 20 million? Or have you been, so talk to me about the kind of differences in terms of your roles and also what was needed from you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. The way our business has grown, the best way to put this is I have needed to be a new and better version of me roughly every 6 months. So if that gives you like an idea of pacing, and that's purely just because that's how the business has grown. For other people that's probably not like their reality. But for us, the business grows 30% a year. So I have a new reality every 6 months. And at $5 million, the org chart is going to be, I have an ops manager, and I have one or two frontline leaders, call center manager, service manager, install manager. And you're in the day. Like, you might not think of yourself that way because you're not like helping quote jobs, but I'm going to be HR. I'm going to be very tactical, which I don't think you ever really lose. But I'm going to be very tactical and very like, hey, how's this specific job going? Is it okay? Am I going to lose money here? Do we have the materials over here? It's like logistics.
Right.
A little bit of coaching. A little bit of like, let's get to the next step. Let's figure out what that is. But it's pretty heads down. 10, you're starting to build between 10 and 15. You're working on like the functional disciplines inside the business. So how do I build an accounting arm? How do I build a marketing discipline? How do I build an HR and recruitment discipline that can help me scale past 15? So what the business needs from you at that point is to be the greatest generalist they've ever seen. They need you to be someone that can switch hit between HR, marketing, and accounting pretty easily, because you have to be able to hire and help build departments you probably never touched. I know I didn't, right? Like, I was a plumber. So you have to be able to be this generalist that's capable of standing up a department that didn't exist.
Right.
And so
you're building business units within the business.
It's building cost centers. You're building cost centers. Yep. So, okay, how do I bring on a controller? And then what else? Like, how do I need my AR clerk, my EP clerk? Who's doing payroll? Like, how do I build this? And then how do I sop the shit out of it? Like, how do I make this a really strong part of what we do every day? Don't cut that part.
No, I won't. I won't.
Yeah, but so how do we create SOPs for everything that we do? And then so that's what 10 to 15 was for me. Like, getting my arms around the administrative side of the business. $10 million is a lot of money no matter how we spin it. So how am I looking at it? How am I seeing reporting? How am I figuring out hiring and protecting myself with HR? And like, how am I driving demand? So those are the big things you have to solve. And then 15 to 20, what the business needed from me was, how do I build new leaders? Which I think that's a forever thing. Like, all of these things are forever things. But building new leaders was hard, like easily hardest stage I've had to go through.
And just so I'm clear, meaning like you're bringing people from lower levels of your company up into leadership positions?
Or hiring
and putting
in.
them,
yeah,
or hiring in.
Because
Okay.
at 15, like, so what's going to happen is if I walk inside a $13 million plumbing company tomorrow, all they do is plumbing. They probably are lean, very, very lean. So 15 is this a huge point of reinvestment. It's sort of like, we talked about these growth plateaus where you have to add a massive amount of payroll. So when we were between 15 and 20 million, which was a year, but we had to add 7 leadership positions,
Yeah.
which is a lot of payroll.
Yeah.
And like, look, we've gotten better at it, but hiring leaders is tough. Like, that's
Yeah.
hard work. You're hiring someone that you're entrusting team members with. Like, people don't leave businesses; they leave their manager. So you're hiring like real responsibility, and you're starting to hand over risk. Like, hey, if this person does a bad job, it is a tangible risk to what we are doing every day in our business. And it's really hard, and it's hard when and this is just like from the leadership side. I don't know how to build leaders. I don't think that I am an amazing leader. I think I'm like a guy that bought some companies, worked to figure it out, and I try to work with smart people. I don't think that I'm like, there's people I really admire for leadership. Like Chad Peterman's amazing. He's a much better leader than I am. One day, right? But it's hard to build leaders when you aren't that functional yourself. Like when I don't
Right.
feel like I'm this like amazing, General Patton guy or whatever. So that was really hard. Hiring these leaders, building these leaders, and then obviously soaking up the cost of their payroll as you grow into that investment. So what the business needed from me was a leadership quality that I didn't possess. And I had to build it. And I don't know that I did, but I sure shit tried.
So how'd you get it? Like, what'd you do? Like, what were some of the things you did to go get it? Or like,
well, this is one of the ways. This is one of the ways that having a media business does help you, is you get to talk to people that are ahead of you. One of my favorite jokes is like, "There's nothing a white dude loves more than a microphone." So if you want to, if you want to talk to people that are smarter than you and ahead of you on your journey, invite them on your podcast, because I've been able to bring like the top of the industry onto our show and just like ask people that are so much smarter than me, like, "Hey, how did you do this thing?" And they'll tell you, which is crazy. So I think that helped a lot. And honestly, most of it was just mistakes. Like me not understanding how to work with leaders, but learning by either hiring bad ones or doing a very bad job coaching and preparing them to succeed. So we think about leadership very differently now. We have a I don't want to give it like too much credit, but it's good. It's not great. Training program to train our current leadership team, including like we launched a community, and that's another way that our media is helping our core business. So we can talk about that if you want. Or we started training the next line of leaders, which I see as like one of our big wins of 2025. Is we're not just training our current leaders, we're training the people that will one day become leaders. So that has been a really big win.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a good segue. So let's talk about owned and operated. That's where you and I met, which is awesome.
Yeah.
That's how we got here and developed a friendship.
Yeah.
So you started that. At what point did you start that, and what was the impetus for it?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the evolution.
I start. We can hit it and go back, so we can talk about the real thing. But
cool.
We started sharing on the internet in late 2020 of like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Plumber in Akron. And I'm sure I probably like used more sophisticated words to try to, make myself seem more important, but I've come to accept who I am. and I'm buying businesses, in Ohio to try to grow my business. And, it got a heck of a response. People were fascinated by the journey. They were interested in the multi-gener, like a lot of it. So we just openly shared. And if you want, well, we openly shared. Maybe 6 months in, or towards the end of 2021, we decided to launch a podcast talking about it. Frankly, I think I did it at first because I was like, this will make a couple bucks, not knowing that it didn't for a long time. So it definitely cost money, but it was fun, and we just continued to share that journey. And I'm grateful that we kept doing it because it's something to look back on now. Like I get to, look back at the first time I hired a director, or like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. God, I wonder what happens. And yikes, that was bad. Or like, yeah, that was a great, that was a great decision. So it is kind of funny. And at first it was a totally different thing. For the first couple of years, it was this like, hey, it's this over here. And then there's Wilson. And it was almost like a holdco where it's like, these are two completely different projects. And over the past year, we are, and I do this every time I describe this problem, I want my time to have leverage, and I want everything I do to be solving the same problem. So it has been a very deliberate focus on how do we bring these two things together, and how is owned and operated the same thing as my core business? Like, how is this actually the same thing instead of two totally disparate things? Because it's obviously hard to imagine how a podcast can aid a one market plumbing company in Ohio.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you how it does.
Yeah, I want to know about it.
Yeah, so a couple ways. Executive recruitment is miles easier when they seek you out.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. But because there's no people know exactly what I think. Like they know the journey we're on. They can track it back to $4 million of revenue because we've been sharing for that long. So they understand where the business was, where it is, and where it's going. So we'll get cold reach outs all the time for leadership and above positions. It actually helps with text too. Not as much, but we're now branching into that more, which it will aid our field recruitment process, which is kind of fun. It's given me, I had a friend of mine ask the other day, he's like, hey, are you trying to be a guru? And I'm like, no, I'm actually just trying to grow a really gigantic plumbing and HVAC company. And this is a shortcut that you never knew was possible. Because what if I told you that you could invite the top of your industry and you could grill them for an hour to 2 hours on their entire journey and ask them questions that they would otherwise never answer? What would you do? What would you do for that privilege? And that's what I get to do. I get to bring on these people and learn in a totally unique way, which is awesome. We catch the eye of every partner, service provider, wholesaler, and everybody that has ever wanted to deal within this industry because we have a voice. Not only are we a large for our industry, but we also are a large influencer for the industry. So we can contact people that most people are not able to get a hold of because of that, which has given us some privileges, which is awesome.
That's great.
And then finally, we launched a paid community thing, which the reason that that's a win for us is I get to continue to develop my leaders. And through like creating a buying group for it, I get to reduce my cost of goods sold. So over the last year, we've been merging them closer and closer together. And over the next year, people are going to see it even more. We're like, hey, this is actually the same thing. The ultimate journey for where our content ends is we're going to use it as a funnel to find people that we can invest in their businesses and partner with them, which is going to increase our continued growth. So that's how
lead
this
into
is all
acquisitions.
the same thing. Yeah, there's acquisitions, yeah. I mean, we have 45,000 contractors on my email list. That's
wild.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? Our podcast is 3 in plumbing and 2 in plumbing and 3 in HVAC. That's a lot of people.
Wow.
So yeah, we're looking to eventually turn it into a funnel to find future partners.
I think that's great. So you're at 30 million now. You want to go to 100 million. That's kind of your next When do you see that happening by, or what's your goal? Is it 2030? Did I read that somewhere?
Yep.
2030.
Yep.
And how many acquisitions do you need to do to get there? And I guess, is that where you're spending most of your time, is content and acquisitions these days?
No.
Or where do you spend most of?
I mean, most of my time is very like operationally focused.
Okay.
So content's 5 to 6 hours a week.
Okay.
I think it's a good investment of my time, again, because all the ways I just described how it's a win for us
Right.
as a company. I think one day we'll write a book. And I think when people find out and understand the path that a podcast can take a local plumbing company to $100 million, they will be absolutely amazed. So look out for the book. It'll come in 2031.
Love it.
But so we actually haven't been buying companies. Our last deal was 2022. So
Okay.
at this point, organic revenue is 70% of our total revenue.
Okay.
We got very good at growing organically. We used acquisition to break past $10 million, and then we hunkered down and focused. So a lot of my time now is I'm really focused on what the next market looks like. We're getting ready to either buy or launch another market. It'll be
okay. I didn't know that.
early next year. Yeah,
In Ohio?
in Ohio. Yeah.
Okay.
And if it's an acquisition, we'll be a little bit more flexible on that. But if it's a greenfield, we have 2 spots we're going to pick. And so a lot of my time now is process oriented. Like, how do we make sure that we are dialed and locked and operationally prepared to go to multi-market? Because multi-market, like, I do not take it lightly. We ran 5 locations for 2 years after 2021, and it is very hard.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the composition of our business was so different. We were so small. We have a lot more resources. We have a lot more infrastructure now. We will do better, but we are approaching it with a very healthy caution. So a lot of my time has been, is our accounting department ready for multi-location? There's a lot of complicated stuff there. Is my controller capable? Do we have the people on the team that we need? What does my training process and onboarding process look like for how do I hire 10 people in this section over here, train them in my headquarters, and send them back out, and will they succeed? What can I centralize? And if I can centralize these different aspects, are they best in class? Like, what do we need to do in order to work in 2 locations? So that's a lot of my time now.
It's just preparing for that.
Preparing, yeah. And buttoning up and making sure that the business is in good condition. And also, transparently, like, back to, like, hey, what type of leader do you need to be? Like, hey, at 30 million, like, I'm still figuring it out. I have to figure it out every 6 months, man. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like, the where I'm currently at is a lot of, this sounds so crass, but it is, hey, what am I paying you for? And that's
Right.
a real question of, like, hey, if this is your job, then like, what am I expecting you to do? Frontline manager, director, whatever. And then how am I keeping score of that? And how often are we talking about it? And what happens if you're off track? And that's a big part of where I live right now, is very regular, like, health checkups, and all the way down to, like, I do a lot of skip levels to work directly with our frontline leaders to do health checkups with their departments. I do skip levels down to our directors to work with their departments. We're working on budgets with all of our cost center managers to make sure, like, hey, I expected 500 calls this week. Did you hit it? Did you not? What happens if you didn't? How are you coaching this call taker? They're off by 10%. So that's a lot of our current time is, are we button up? Are we optimized? And are we holding our leaders accountable to what we expect and what we pay them for?
You and I are at a very similar stage. I'm doing the same exact thing. Like, we're implementing scorecards 2 weeks from now. And last year, so, like, with a franchise, like, you just grow super rapidly by the definition of the business model. Like, you add franchisees, and then the business needs very different versions of the business very quickly. And so last year, like, in April, this time last year, I was still doing the franchise sales.
Sure.
And that was because I wanted to find the franchisees and make sure they knew who they were who they were buying into, what they were going to get, that kind of
that
thing.
Makes sense.
But I very quickly needed to get out of that role, put leaders in place, and I know where we're going this year. I know we're going to cross 400 this year. So I was like, I need to build a C-suite of executives who have done this thing before. And they don't have to work, you know this, they don't have to work for me. They don't have to work for you. Like, they can work anywhere. And so I went from, I'm doing a lot of individual contributor stuff. I still built a good team, but like now I need to build an executive team. And we did that, and it's very expensive, as you mentioned earlier. And you take a big risk on yourself and where the business is going to be. And now, like, we have the team in place, but now it's like, how do we measure the team? And how do we hold the team accountable? I'm in the same exact place as you are right now. Yeah,
and I think what's sort of funny, I think so much of the like entrepreneurial, like how to build, is such a crock of shit. Like when I think about like EOS, like the ever touted EOS, like I love EOS. We're on L10, or we're L10.
Yeah.
We're fully integrated for like 4 or 5 years into EOS.
Yeah,
but the whole visionary operator thing is a crock of shit. It's like you can only lead as whoever you are, right? And I think like being pigeonholed into something is stupid. And I also think titling yourself as visionary is a tough one. But I think it sets the tone that you don't need to have a pulse on what's going on, and I think it further like confuses people because there's this line that everybody says, but when you look at actual hyper successful businesses, they totally do the opposite. And it is, hey, hire smart people and leave them alone. That's not how you win this game. You hire smart people and then you build a scorecard and you hold them accountable.
Yeah,
you don't
I
leave
agree.
them alone. Because they need coaching. Smart people need coaching too. Like, just because they're smart doesn't solve all the problems. So you have all these like tropes of how to build a business, and they're all freaking wrong. Like, and the person that really like helped me understand this better, Chris Hoffman, did this post like a year and a half ago, and it like honestly pissed me off because it was like, hey, our leaders have a frontline obsession. That was the start of it. And it was, I know, like me, Chris, knows when a certain technician is struggling. Like that's the level of frontline obsession that is in his company. And I'm sitting there like, just finished up, this would have been late 23 probably, so like 15 million, 16 million bucks or whatever. And I'm like, this dude is 8 times my size. And he knows more granular information about people that I'm closer to than I do. And I felt like a real idiot because I thought that I was supposed to be hiring smart people and leaving them alone because that's what all the books say.
Right.
And then, you start diving in and you're like, no, you got to do what you just said. You got to set this scorecard. You got to know, like, hey, is Ari doing great in call center? Or like, why'd she miss her number by 10%? What are you doing about it? Like, are you coaching? I'm assuming you're coaching, but walk me through the last coaching you had with her and like, tell me what happened. Like, did you see results? Yes, no. Same with text. Like, hey, this guy's his conversion rate's down from 50 to 30. Like, I'm assuming you're doing something. So how about you walk me through it? When's your next ride along? When's your next coaching? And I think that has allowed us to push further faster because it's the opposite of what all the books say. Because that's like, yeah, I'm $30 million. My fingers are I'm in the pie, right? I understand the nitty. But I don't know how you get huge without it, without understanding the nitty.
Yeah. I mean, it's very similar. So like tomorrow I'm meeting with the business coaches, and the business coaches have direct frontline relationships with franchisees. They're meeting with them weekly, and I'm going to sit down with them and our brand president, who's the operational leader of Rolling Suds, him, and then the VP of franchisee success, which leads the business coaches. And I'm going to sit down and be like, explain to me every single constraint that you see in getting franchisees to a full-time truck, which is $40,000 a month, which is $2,000 a day, 20 days a week. And how can we get them there faster? Yeah. And what are the reasons what are the reasons you see as the potential constraints so that I can deploy resources properly so that I can then build the systems necessary to help you guys achieve your goals, which your goals are all designed around franchisee same store sales growth month over month.
Yeah.
So how can I help you better reach your goals? But like if you're off on an island on a boat, leaving your team alone, how are you going to know that?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think you need frontline obsession is probably the best word for it. Of just like really understanding like what's actually happening inside the business, and the results are comical. Like it's crazy. You know, we keep it all in one spreadsheet. So I have this like I do this meeting, and I do 8 of them a week. And if you're wondering if that's a sacrifice, it is. But
8 of what kind of meetings?
So it's these like scorecard reviews, and I'm personally doing them.
Okay. Okay.
So that's there's 4 cost center leaders and 4 operational leaders, like teams of operational leaders. So every Monday from 12:30, actually there's 5 on Monday. So from 12:30 to 3, I'm locked in a room. In 30-minute increments, they come in and we walk through what happened last week. We walk through goals for this week. It's just scorecard driven. Hey, your team average ticket was X, conversion rate was X. It's really very simple, which I think good business is always very simple. But it's always continued to surprise me the bigger we get, how much simpler it actually gets. Like we talk about 3 things. We talk about it for 30 minutes, but we talk about 3 things. How much did you sell? How many houses did you sell something at? And what was the average sale? Like it's kind of funny. So we spend a lot of time on that, and that's 5 on Monday. And in the time that we've been working on it, our conversion rate has doubled from working on those. So like mid-30s to 60 to 70% conversion rate. Because we are in it
obsessed
every
over
Monday.
it.
We talk about it every Monday. We're constantly working on how to enhance it, how to coach it. And when there's someone lagging, it used to take us a month to like, oh man, his numbers last month were bad. It's like, no, his numbers Friday were bad. Like, what are you doing? Are you talking to him? And which, aside from like improving business performance drastically, has helped all of our team members a ton, because they're all like succeeding way more. They're getting way better coaching than they used to get. And then on Thursday, I do 4 with our cost center leaders, which I think I ignored that for too long. But man, call center has a big budget. They got a lot of people. They got a lot of software, and I was not on top of that. Accounting has a big budget. Freaking marketing has a big budget. My budget for marketing was $2.3 million. And I was just like, you got it. You're smart.
Let me know how those $2 million go.
Let me know how that $2 million feels. So we're diving a lot. We're diving a lot deeper now. And it's just been awesome. Huge level up for the business.
So those cost centers are call center, accounting, marketing. What's the 4th one? HR. And then you have a leader in each of those departments, and you're just basically
There's a budget
meeting.
Leader.
Budget leader, and they're just trying to figure out how to optimize those departments and make them.
I mean,
as effective
optimize
as possible.
or like what are the measurables? So we use budget. We use the word budget pretty loosely. So like budget could be I have a budgeted number of inbound phone calls that I need. So like if I go to my call center manager Lori and I say, hey, did we hit budget? Like we're gonna be both thinking about calls, not really dollars. Now, granted, we do also talk about dollars, because that team has a lot of dollars. There's just a lot of people in it. We're talking. So marketing budget, number of leads by team. Like, did we hit this target? Did we hit this target? Also, how much did we spend? What was our ROAS on that spend? Accounting is really focused on materials and salaries and like cash in. So that's our budget. Hey, did we hit our budget cash in? Or it was our materials on budget, and if it wasn't, where was it off? Are we on pace for all of our rebates that we've committed to? And HR's recruits. Are we on budget for the number of plumbers we need by May?
And what are the tools you use to track all that stuff?
Google Sheets.
Like internally, like Google Sheets. Okay. Yeah.
I made a bunch of Google Sheets for it. And they all basically
do the Google Sheets push data to you, or do you have to have does your team go in and pull pull
It's
the data
it's
and
manual. Yeah, it's
manual. Okay.
Yeah, we
We're
just
trying to
hired
figure that
on,
out right now.
We I want to say 60 days ago, but we brought on like an automations person, basically custom software dev,
Okay.
and we're building a bunch of micro apps, and it's very low lift. I understand that when I say like custom software dev, it sounds very sophisticated. It's not. A bunch of it will probably be like the lovable AI thing. But really, someone is working on how do we connect more things to automate as much as possible.
Yeah. We're working on having that, because right now it's just done via scorecards, and then the leaders have to pull it and present it to with their one-on-ones with the brand president, and then the brand president presents it to me, and then we have that's how we're kind of structuring it. But we're using a software called Profit Keeper that we use for our franchise owners. And then it gathers their data and pushes a dashboard to them so that they can real time see their 8 core metrics that drive the growth. But I want that internally as well. Like, I want to be able to click onto a thing and just be like, okay, what's the marketing department doing? How are we at with leads? Like, rather than wait every single week, like I want to, and so we're working on having it push.
What's kind of
now.
fun as you start doing it, you know, one of the things I never thought I'd have to care about. There's so many things, but one of them is response times from HR. Like, response times is its own category of bullshit as you grow a business.
Right, because the more pain in the ass it is for the employees, the less happy the employees are.
100%. So, like, hey, what's the response time in minutes from if I request an IT, if I put in a ticket for like, hey, I have an issue with my computer or my printer or whatever, what is the response time? And what, not just response time, what's the solve time? And maybe even more importantly, how do you track that and dashboard it?
Right.
And then how do you do it across fleet, IT, accounting, marketing, HR, and any other task-driven cost center? And it's wild. So that was one of our first automations. Was we kept like finding, we're like, dude, why? We have this task manager, and it's hard to keep track of that stuff. Like, I got other things going on. I don't want to log in and look at like how many tasks accounting hasn't completed yet. So we'd log into HR and there'd be like 60 tasks. And we're like, literally, this is back to why am I paying you? Why am I paying you? Like, I'm paying you to handle these tasks and keep my employees happy. And you are literally not doing that. Like, you have 60 tasks from multiple weeks ago. So why am I paying you money? I find that that's actually a very simple sentence to keep coming back to. It really does help.
Why am I paying you money?
It really does help center, because I think a lot of leaders, I'm guilty of this too, is like we make excuses for our managers sometimes of like, oh, we're busy, or oh, we're this is going on. But at the end of the day, like, very literally, why am I putting money in your bank account? And it is to solve X, X, and X. And if you are not doing X, X, and X, then what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
I literally had a discussion like that this morning with our brand president, because the idea of the brand president is you are the operational leader. You lead the executive team, like, meaning the executive team reports to you and then you report to me.
100%.
If someone is jumping over you and coming to me with their problems, that's literally them disrespecting you.
Yeah.
And if I have to keep getting their problems, I'm going to question whether
why am I paying you money?
Why these people are are they in the right seat here?
Yeah.
Because clearly I'm still having to do this, like, and I had that discussion, and I was like, and he was like, the person I was talking to, I won't say who it was, just for people who are listening, but like, it was like, hey, I can't promise that person's not going to come to you. And I'm like, well, then I'm going to wonder if this is the way that things should be. So I need you to handle it. Thanks. And like,
usually
like,
I've
Roger
actually,
that.
in difficult moments, I have used the sentence.
Yeah.
Like, hey, why do you think I'm paying you money? People's reactions are pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But normally
it makes sense for high salaried people. Like, they
point
realize
across very fucking quickly. Like, hey, you are here to serve my employees and make sure that we don't churn them and we keep good talent.
Right.
You're actively not doing that. So
Yeah.
what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so one of the first automations we did was like scorecarding response times and solution times for our cost centers, which was like absolutely fascinating. And it is now on TVs throughout the office because we're a big fan of like kind of radical accountability. And leaders are very hard to hold accountable because they're like how you measure a leader is over longer periods of time with more opaque information. So we've done our best to make it less opaque. So how do we have a scorecard on all the TVs? Not just for text, like that's easy. Hey, did you sell something? Did you not? Did you book the call? Did you not? Like that's the easy low-hanging fruit. How does the whole company know where the service managers stand? How does the whole company know if the executives are doing their job? So like we posted our rocks. Again, we're on EOS. So our rocks are public facing on a wall. Like check them, don't check them. Are we on track, off track? Everybody has to walk by them really frequently. We post the dashboards for response times out of our cost centers to hold radical accountability to our HR, marketing, fleet, accounting. Like, hey, are we supporting our team members in the way that they need supported? So finding ways to like showcase that has been a big win for us. So awesome. One, I'm holding you accountable, but the other 140 people in the building also walk by your rocks, and they know if you are doing the thing you're paid to be doing.
Yeah, I love that. I do like EOS because it puts everything out in the open.
Yeah.
And when you have these meetings, like we have our level 10 meeting with our leaders on every Tuesday, and actually would love your opinion on this. I've stepped down from coming to those sometimes because I want to let my leaders lead, and sometimes like I'll get on when I really need to drive some things forward, and if I feel like, but like I definitely do this dance of like holding accountable and stepping aside versus like getting in and driving like IDS topics. But the last couple, I wasn't on, and the first one, like leaders kind of started talking about things that weren't relevant to like the rocks that needed to happen in the quarter, and it all came back, and I talked to and I was like, hey, like I'm expecting these initiatives to be driven forward on these calls. Otherwise, like these are very expensive meetings. Like we have 90 minutes to like achieve things. And so, so I'm on them sometimes and I'm not on them sometimes because I'm trying to like let leaders lead. But
I think it's a stage thing. Like for my stage, I would not, but I also don't understand the nuance of your business. I do think, and this is back to like, I'm doing skip levels with our frontline leaders. I'm handling budget conversations with our cost center leaders. Like I'm not in the day-to-day as in I'm not booking calls, but I understand intricately what's happening day-to-day. So for me, that would not be good. For you, maybe. I really don't know.
Yeah.
Like you guys might be in a different seat. I think eventually the type of L10 I'm in changes where, as we go multi-location, we have to figure, honestly, we're really confused about it. Like I don't know the answer for what L10s look like. And we're really trying to figure out org chart. Like, hey, I've got a branch manager over here and like, where do they report to? Who's their dotted lines? Who's their solid lines?
Yeah.
What do I pay them for? Because that's honestly kind of confusing. Like when you have a HQ which handles most of the stuff, literally, what's this guy supposed to do all day? Like, why am I going to pay him $120,000? I'm sure there is a reason. I just don't yet understand it. So then you bring smart people onto the podcast and you ask them. But I think for us, I'm imagining it changes when we go multi-location a little because how we think of leadership will transition from like, hey, these are the problems that we feel right here, and these are the problems that we have holistically. But I do sit in all of them still. I find that I participate less. What I've tried to be doing is like the speaking last principle of like, hey, I want to be in every meeting, but I want to speak last. I want to see how they do. I want to see if they handle the problem. I want to have the right to give my perspective, but I don't always.
Yeah. One of the things I remember that like has stood out to me since we had our initial conversation was kind of how you've optimized like your marketing cost center, like how you've basically taken, your total addressable market, you're only servicing X percent of your total addressable market, and you've like maxed out the paid ads spend that you could do. So talk to me, remind me, or let's maybe dig into that a little bit of like, what are you doing now that you weren't doing at maybe 10 million or 12 million that's helping you kind of achieve this level of organic growth? Because 30% per year is insane.
We could spend days. Yeah, I mean, the answer is we could spend days. Like,
yeah.
So a lot. Like, we're doing a lot, and the results are showing it. But it is a full-assed activity. Like, we put it all in there. So, marketing for us, the way it ran forever, and the way most companies still run when they're smaller, you have to level up at some point. But even when we last talked, I was still not, we've matured quite a bit just in the last 6 months. It's a very like LSA focused, probably similar to Rolling Suds, right? Like your franchise, like, hey, we're going to put money in LSA, get lead out. And that is enough. And that is enough. That being one channel. Like, hey, if you find one channel that works, you max the channel. Like you run that thing till it's dry, right? And that works up to a certain point until you have run it dry. And then there is no more leads to run out of that channel. And then what do you do next is the really hard question. Because there's a lot of things. There's like, and there's so many different things like coming at you of like, okay, do I do radio or do I TV, or how about mailers or door-to-doors? What about events? Like, what about Angie's? There's all these different options. And when you're allocating $2 million at a time, ideally, the bigger the bucket, the better. Because it's,
right.
It's kind of hard to put like 40 grand here and 60 grand here. It's like, now I want to put $1 million over here, 200 over there. That's roughly how we think about it. So, for us, we maxed the channel, and we maxed the LSA channel. So we've spent a lot of our time over the last 12 months finding other channels. And that's the thing that can take days. All the different things we tried, what worked, what didn't. But at the end of the day, we learned a lot, and it did work. Whereas now, LSA, still a big channel for us. A year ago, it was our only channel, and we just figured out how to win. Now, it's like of our paid like lead gen spend, it's 30% of the budget. So we gained runway by figuring out more channels.
So is it like nurturance of your existing customers? Is it referrals?
Actually, I was just referring to lead gen. So the way our budget is divvied up. So if we spend $160,000 a month, $165,000 a month, $60,000 is earmarked to lead generation spend.
Got it.
Another 20-ish is earmarked towards salaries. We do count salaries as marketing because the alternative is you hire an agency. And
got it.
That would be marketing, so we count that.
Yep.
We have events, which is another $20,000, so that's $100,000. We have 35-ish go towards mass media, TV, radio, and the back 15 is discretionary and software. So we have some softwares. They cost a couple $1,000 a month, and they basically have $10,000 to play with, which they have to make an argument every time for it of like, hey, this is why I want to do this. But usually it's some type of social ad promotion.
Got it. Okay.
But only 60 of it is direct lead generation, which that actually hasn't changed very much. We just added more marketing expense, like as a whole, as we've gone on. But our budget, last January was 100,000 in marketing, and now we're at 160. Business is up 30%. Big jump in marketing, obviously, but in January we added a really big branded push through TV and radio, so that consumed a lot of dollars, and we don't expect to see return on that till next year.
That's awesome.
But about 400 grand is going into mass media this year.
Very cool. All right, the question I ask like everyone who comes on, like, why do you do this crazy thing called entrepreneurship? Like, what's the reason? Because it's nuts.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a choice, so my answer is probably different than other people. I dropped out of college a few times. My last one was accounting, where I had like part of a degree. I started running the family business at 23. I bought it at 25. And before I bought it, before I became the entrepreneur, the person that, made this decision, I didn't really feel like I had much of a choice to do anything else because I didn't have a degree and I didn't know what else I could possibly do. I was a licensed plumber, but it's very hard to be taken seriously as a licensed plumber at 23. Like, you're still very early in your career. I was leading the company at 23, but who honestly is going to place a leader at that age in their business? And the answer is no one in their right mind, including my dad. I don't know why he did. But it was a matter of, I had to do it.
Got it.
Like, there wasn't another option in my mind. And to this day, there's not another option in my mind. So I don't really think about it. I've had to figure out how to make payroll for nearly my entire adult life. So I don't actually know anything else.
It's like, I talk a lot about this, like, burn the boats. Like, there's so many entrepreneurs that are like, oh, I'm going to like do this side hustle thing and I'm going to like keep my job. And when the side hustle comes up to big enough, like, I'm going to leave the job. It's like, burn the boats. Because if you have no other option, then there's no other option.
There's no other option. I mean, we've, Jack and I, he's my co-host on our show, but we were just talking about this. It's like the only non-option is failure. And you would be amazed what you can do when there is literally no other option. You would be amazed.
Yeah. Jack was actually one of the first guests. I don't know if he told you. He lives like 5 minutes from me. So
I know you guys are close. Yeah, that would be fun. That would be fun.
He came here to the studio and so he's like, I think episode number 1 or 2,
That's awesome.
So
but I think, I didn't have a choice. So, and I've always had to make payroll, so you just figure it out. And here we are. Business is big now.
That's awesome. And so for people who are thinking about either buying, starting, acquiring, like, words of advice, what would you recommend to, you at, $1 million or even a brand new startup? Like, what are some things and some piece of advice that we can leave them with?
Yeah, I'm saying this, and not even because I'm talking to you. I actually think it's probably a really great resource. I think that franchises are like a very real and tangible option. I hadn't really thought of it that way until I met my friend Nathan, who runs like an absolutely massive multi-unit franchise system. And then I understood the scalability of the same operating system in every single location. So I think that franchises are like a hack. And I spent the first $10 million trying to figure out what the heck I was doing. And it would have been nice to have a playbook. So I think franchises are a win. If you're looking to buy something you can get your arms around, is usually my take. Like, what can you figure out? Before we started going acquisition heavy, we ran a debt-free business, basically, all the way up to $4 or $5 million. And that gave us a heck of a balance sheet to go nuts in 2021 and buy those 3 companies. And it's because we started small. I figured out the basics. We figured out how to scale. It is harder to do that than a $10 million whatever. Like, it is really, really hard. But I think the chance of total failure is lower.
Yeah, that's really good. That's good advice. Well, John, this has been awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for coming on.
This was fun.
Yeah, this was great. And I'll see you next week.
Next week,
in
I'm ready to
Sundance.
ski. I'm ready
Yeah.
to talk about deals. It's going to be good. You know, my talk there it's similar to what we talked about here. It's I have to do a part of it, and it's how to use media to accelerate your core business. So we're going to go way deeper than we did, because I think
I love that.
A peek behind the curtain, I think, is going to absolutely blow people's minds.
I love that. I'm so pumped for that. That's going to be great. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you next week.